So a while back, I was in conversation with a few friends, and the topic came around to changes in our lives, like the morning aches and pains in our knees and our hands that we don't remember having a few years ago. As a matter of fact, probably don't even remember having like yesterday, and all of a sudden they're here. Or changes in food taste, like the things we used to really like, we no longer have a taste for, and perhaps things that we shunned are now on our regular menu. The conversation morphed into who thought that they had the greatest change in life, that experienced the greatest change in life. One person mentioned getting married, and one said fighting cancer. My offering was changing careers from being a senior executive in city government to becoming a minister, which surprised everyone at that time, including me. Then one woman said that all of those changes pale in comparison to becoming a mother. And yes, I guess taking on mothering responsibilities just might be at the top of the list of life changes. All sorts of things happen when a woman becomes a mother, or a man or a grandparent takes on mothering role. There are changes in social life and in sleep patterns. There are challenges to a couple's relationship as conflict may develop over who does what and how parenting situations are to be handled. Parents, especially mothers, get bombarded with unsolicited advice that can cause distress or second guessing. Don't give new mothers or parents unsolicited advice. Just don't. Women and men experience physical and psychological changes when they take on mothering responsibilities. Women experience hormonal changes, though some research is also showing that men who take on mothering responsibilities have some hormonal changes. And parts of our brains change that enable a person to be better at multitasking. I don't know what they mean by that, but better at multitasking when they become parents or mothers, and have empathy, more empathy for the infant's pain or for their emotions. And all of this kind of change is really hard because we humans do not like to change, even if it's planned or wanted. We like consistency and predictability. Our brains want and seem to need stability. For example, it's estimated that about 95% of the tens of thousands of thoughts we have each day are the same ones that we had yesterday and the day before that. And it seems we are hardwired to resist change, sort of like natural. Part of our brain, the amygdala, I think that's how you pronounce it, interprets change as danger and as a threat, and releases hormones in our body that raises our level of fear, which causes our flight or fight response. It seems that our body is working very hard to protect us from change. And that's why so many people, when they are told they need to change some aspect of their life, or are presented with a new initiative or a new idea, even a good one that has lots of benefits, will resist it. When we are faced with change of almost any type, all kinds of fears develop. We fear the loss of control over our territory. We fear that our incompetencies will now be exposed. We fear the ghost of past unfortunate events or not so stellar behaviors or past resentments or miscalculations will lay in wait now and haunt us or trap us again. And a change forces us to deal mentally with the emotions of surprise. And as much as we may like a surprise birthday party, we really don't like surprises in our lives because we don't know how things will play out, even when a change is planned in our life. When it comes down to it, we really are all creatures of habit who have difficulty incorporating change into our routines. Even something as simple as taking a detour when a street is being repaired, like me coming up Toro Street here when it was being torn up and having to go off in the neighborhood and saying, oh my God, I'm going to get lost because these streets make no sense over there. Or finding that new cleaner when our favorite cleaner has closed. Unplanned changes cause increase in our normal run-of-the-mill anxieties and irritations. But change comes. Change comes ready or not, and it can come in two flavors. Sometimes life serves up a dollop of a simple or planned change. We need to find a new restaurant when ours, the one we really go to all the time, closes. Or the doctor tells us that we need to change our diet. Or we need to get a new car. And then readjust our household expenses. Or we decide to stop coloring our hair and face the gray. This kind of change, or these kinds of change, are really minor, and they are often relatively easy to deal with in the course of things. But sometimes we get a huge scoop of the other kind of change, unexpected change, like a loss of a job or adverse results from what we thought was just going to be a routine medical exam, or a demand for a divorce, or the unexpected death of a loved one, or the arrest of a child. Unexpected changes can be dramatic, challenging, and anguish-producing, and they can and will change the normal pattern of our life. Unexpected changes often transform our life in dramatic ways and may require us to let go of established habits and patterns of behavior and to form new routines. I guess the reason, as I said, that change is so upsetting is that we intuitively know that the process of change and where it will lead is not in our control. When change happens, whether we initiate it or not, things take on a life of their own and can take us entirely into new directions and unexpected places in our lives. But while circumstances of change can determine how our life will go forward physically, what will happen in the physical realm in which we live, how we choose to handle those changes and disruptions will determine the mental realm in which we will be able to live our life as it goes forward. No matter the change we experience, having the right mental attitude will enable us to approach and embrace that change and will help us to live a better life. So, there are actually three practices that I believe can give us a good mental foundation and help us open our hearts and our minds and our spirit to deal with the effects of change. The first, and I think that absolutely the most important, the first is to consciously affirm ourselves and the values that we hold. When we feel threatened by a change, we often start to question ourselves. When we affirm our core values, we remind ourselves of the qualities that make us who we are and what is important to us, such as our family or our capacity for kindness, our creativity, or our faith. We're affirming the deeper place in our being than just living in the current situation. And this can help us remember that we are not our job. We are not our relationship. We are not our bank account. We are not our health. We are beings that have inherent worth and dignity and are a wonderful part of creation, as Unitarian Universalist minister Robert Weston reminds us in his poem, Out of the Stars. Out of the stars in their flight, out of the dust of eternity, here have we come. Stardust and sunlight, mingling through time and through space. Out of the stars we have come. Now, once we get our minds and our hearts firmly wrapped around the idea that we are a person of worth, which has value in the way we live, regardless of what is happening to us, we now have then a solid foundation upon which to work to deal with changes that come in our lives. The second practice, I think, is important for us to remember to be compassionate with ourselves when going through the challenging times or changes in our life. We can unfortunately fall into negative thinking about ourselves and come to think sometimes that if we criticize ourselves for what has happened, someone has to be blamed, I guess. If we criticize ourselves for what has happened, we can somehow improve the situation. But research has shown that self-criticism does not improve a situation or make change easier to handle. In fact, it blocks our ability to think clearly and creatively about a situation. And it creates more stress because our energy now is caught up in sending our minds negative messages rather than supportive messages. Now, self-compassion is not self-pity. Self-pity is wallowing in the negative aspects of the situation, or getting us caught up in the "that's not fair" kind of thinking, or taking on victimhood. With self-compassion, we give ourselves the same type of kindness and care that we would give a good friend who is going through a life-changing event. So this then leads us into the third practice. The third practice for helping our mind and spirit deal with a change. And that is to allow ourselves to mentally push through negative feelings and allow ourselves to engage in the new situation, putting all of our skills and talents together to make that change beneficial to us in some way. So yes, going through changes in life, even when they're planned, much less unplanned or catastrophic, is challenging. It's mentally and emotionally exhausting, but there actually are advantages to us when we are open to change, when change comes to us. Change can bring gifts, even when it's not readily apparent. Change can help us grow. Change can sometimes force us to adapt in ways we've never experienced, which can result in personal growth and development. Change can teach us to be flexible. By embracing change, knowing that it's going to come anyway, by embracing change and meeting it head on, we can learn to not be so set in our ways and learn new ways of living. Change can reveal strengths. Sometimes without being forced into a situation caused by a change, we might never learn the true measure of our mental, emotional, or spiritual strength. Change can offer opportunities. By altering the way that we have to live life, opportunities for a new career, a new relationship, or just having fun with life can be open to us, possibly leading us to a more fulfilling and authentic life. And change can help us find deep and hidden strength. Now, we know that some changes can really help us be beneficial, like losing a little bit of weight. But not all changes are pleasant. But overcoming a tough period can often reveal inner strength and resolve that we may not even know that we have had, which is the foundation upon which to build our life going forward. So dealing with change in our life is a challenge, even when it's necessary. But fighting against change is a futile endeavor. It just sucks up mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual energy out of us. So perhaps our best bet is to make it through life is to be open to change if it should come to us, but always keeping a sense of self-worth as the foundation upon which to build ourselves going into the future, and keeping ourselves compassionate to ourselves and the way we are living. And of course, always remembering to give thanks to whoever it was that decided to accept that major change in their life and guide us in our life development. So be it.